Well, if there's one thing we know about our American government is that they love to make sure that we are providing as much money as we can to the military-industrial complex. And you're starting to hear more and more signs from military analysts and news thinkers and so forth that, hey, China's the real threat here, right? They're playing the long game. China is really where the focus should be, right? They are envious of Russia. They are about to invade Taiwan. And that's why over the past 24 hours, we've gotten word that the United States is now set to deploy thousands of Marines to Australia for a possible confrontation with China, as China looks ever closer to perhaps invading Taiwan as it watches what Russia is doing. So now 2,200 U.S. Marines, servicemen and women, will be based in the Northern Territory of Australia during the upcoming, quote, dry season from September. It's the 11th deployment to the top end, and for the first time it will include 250 U.S. Army personnel. And why is this going to happen? Well, because they say this contingent is part of an ongoing U.S. initiative in the Indo-Pacific region to prepare for a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan in the coming years. They're calling it, of course, training exercises, but make no mistake about it, this is positioning surface-to-air missile systems, artillery and rockets, and unmanned aircraft, all of it, drones, etc., all bound for this region to be placed there permanently as the new, as the Chinese Chinese dragon starts to rise.
Well, not just the Chinese dragon, also North Korea has been testing increasing number of weapons and sort of showing them off to South Korea, and South Korean government has been saying, hey, take a look over here. Taiwan says China is doing the same. So the United States, I don't know, I guess they feel like they can't be caught with their pants down, right? So you got to move some troops
is there any chance the U.S. could just stand down and just leave the rest of the world alone for a little while?
I think when it comes to China, the United States would really like to. That is a fight we definitely don't want to be drawn into, but we can't be seen doing nothing.
It's one of those things where if you look at, so over the years, like U.S. sanctions against China, like all of the things that the United States has sort of positioned ourselves, it's the same, it's almost like repeating itself. It's history repeating itself, what NATO did basically against Russia over the years. Like the agitation. It's like this, like the little, like it's like a piece of sand gets in your eye, And that's where the United States relationship with China has been over the past number of years. It's like an agitation. And so this idea that suddenly China, just out of the blue, has just gone nuts, like mad Vladimir Putin, like that's the language that we hear. Out of the blue, Xi Jinping is just crazy all of a sudden. He's just nuts all of a sudden. All of this has been mounting for years.
Yes.
The United States, obviously, holding U.S. as a reserve currency over the Chinese head, sanctions over the trade issues with the Chinese. I'm not saying what they're doing is good at all, and I'm not any kind of Xi Jinping apologist. All I'm saying is this is not out of the blue. And so for this to suddenly, like this is a shock, that China would want to move away from the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, that China would want to move away from trade relations with the United States, that China would want to move away from oil.
I don't think that's so shocking. Economists have been saying for a long time that this is the Cold War that we are in. It has nothing to do with Russia, actually. It has to do with the Cold War over the default currency. And China is just biding its time to take that over. I mean, China sees the United States hitting debt limit after debt limit. China has been willing to lend for that very reason. And as the United States cannot cover all of the transactions around the world that happen on the US dollar, the dollar begins to shrink, and China's been ready for a long time.
I mean, there's already 1,000 Marines there. Go ahead, David, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I saw a documentary years ago, and it was talking about just this very thing, and how Iraq and Libya were talking about using the dinar, which is gold, as the currency to trade oil. And that was the reason that we actually went into Iraq and these places, is because they were messing with the potential of the dollar not being the main currency for trading oil in those regions. And it's just like, there's so many nuances to this, but it's like, it's like China that sees a boulder falling. Why would anybody like not get out of the way of the boulder? If a dollar is crashing like ours because we're spending it, we're printing it like it's completely, going out of style. Why would anybody want to buy into that?
Well,
because it's going to crash.
You mean you wouldn't want to buy into $30 trillion worth of debt that the United States has? The U.S. dollar not backed by anything, not backed by U.S.
Like what
not backed by gold or anything.
What investor would look at our dollar
China
and be like, "Hey, that's the one you should buy into"?
Right, but to lend, if China lends to the United States, right, it gives them increasing power, which is something that's very interested in. The Chinese definitely wants to be the default currency. Although with the defaults just last year of property groups in China, we see that their currency is not that much stronger than ours.
Meanwhile, the war drums are getting louder in Washington. So Senate holding a committee hearing this week, members of the military sitting there in front of Senator Joe Manchin. He's like, look, when I was a young boy, I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the threat of, and I know I applaud what you guys are doing there. And where do you see China kind of going? And what the message now from the United States is China is really positioning itself alongside of Russia. China is really the thing that we need to watch. So Russia's fun for now, guys, but China, all eyes on China. That's where we need to start ramping up our military spending. That's where we need to put our focus. Here's what the members of the military had to say in front of the Senate.
It could do harm, not just basically upend the world, approach on the world order, if you will, but basically do damage to the homeland.
Senator, for me, I think I subscribe to what's laid out in our national defense strategy, which is China is the longer-term threat, the pacing threat, but today, it's Russia.
Today. So right now, like, we get to spend a lot of money on Russia, but we've got to be planning for the future, right?
But then by that logic, wouldn't it make sense to save yourself for the bigger bully and not go get beaten up by the lesser bully?
Well, I guess in some ways we are, right? We don't have to then necessarily be dragged into a protracted war. We can just funnel as much money and supplies as we can to Ukraine and do it through a proxy war. We can funnel it through NATO, so we don't necessarily have to be drawn into it.
Oh, right, because we don't have a shortage of weaponry.
No, we don't. We have plenty of that. Heck, we give it to our police departments. We have so much weaponry.
Right.
We have so much weaponry. We just leave it on this. We leave it in Afghanistan. We just leave it in piles.
No, we lose it even. Like 10% of military weapons goes poof up in smoke, lost from the supply chain every year. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they went on. These guys are not done.
It's like, did anybody see where I parked my tank? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. You like cut right to it. But.
China aspires perhaps in the future to have that capability, but I think the acute threat right now, of course, is Russia, and I agree with General Townsend.
Yeah, that the future is China, guys. The future is China. The acute threat right now, though, is Russia, because we're feeling that one. But China's coming, make no mistake about it. So get ready for it. And you even saw yesterday this guy, one of our favorite members of the
State Department.
State Department. Talking specifically about the rising concerns over China, and of course that's why we are sending all of these troops to this area and making sure that that the Australians are protected right now.
To promote democracy, we'll send people's children to die in these areas. Okay, that's the kind of that's worst case scenario they're preparing us for, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're all over that. Good. Glad we're all over this now. Yeah, we'll just keep shipping stuff in. Like, when we ship in arms, by the way, this is what happens when we ship in arms to like Ukraine, right? They go right to the people that we say we would never arm, like Nazis, right? The Azov regiment, who just got all of the new weaponry that the United States sends to them, right? The new missile launchers and everything else that we're sending right to the Nazi-backed Azov regiment in Ukraine. Here you go.
Which is the group that the United Nations has warned Ukraine about stamping down 5 years even before this.
Here you go.
Okay, cool.
Here you go. Remember we fought Nazis? I don't know if you guys remember. There was a war that we fought in Europe in the 1940s, and there were Nazis involved. There were a few Nazis involved, and we fought a war against them, right? But now we're arming them in Ukraine, which is totally fine. Totally fine. No, nothing to see here, nothing to worry about. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.